Hello, welcome to this Learn Scratch tutorial, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to create a find the hidden card swapping game. So the idea being, we click start, it displays 3 cards and you've got to follow the bear. So let's have a look, see if we can do this one. So it mixes them all around, and if you get it right, there we go, if you click on the right one, then it displays the bear. And then you move on to your score goes up by 1, and then it carries on to the next level. And obviously we can make it, we can add some things so it gets harder and harder as it goes along. So there we go. Let's get started. Here we go. So what you need to do first of all is we'll just leave that. Let's go to Scratch, and let's create ourselves a new Scratch project. Excellent. We don't need to Scratch the cat, so we'll get rid of him. And the first thing we're going to do is we'll create our start screen. So here we go. Let's click on the stage, go to the backdrop, and let's create ourselves a backdrop. What should I use for this one? I'll use Dolly for this one. There we go. So there's our backdrop there, and we also, there we are. Let's get rid of that one. And we also need to get it to say card swapping game. So what we do here, make sure you're in vector mode, which it should be. Click on text. Let's change it to Scratch. Let's change the colour to that colour. There we go. And card swapping game. Yeah. Once you've done that, let's just drag it nice and big. Card swapping game. There we go. Let's put can you follow the bear? There. And there we go. Good stuff. So card swapping game. Can you follow the bear? Which is great. There we go. I wonder if we could put a bear on there. Actually, let's have a look. Animals. Where's my bear? Let's put my bear there. Now all I want to try and do is get my bear from here onto that backdrop there. I wonder if I can drag it. Nope, does that not work? What about there? Hey, there you go. So there you go. I've managed to get my bear onto there. So I dragged the little sprite here over to there, and it's got my bear on there. We need to get rid of the bear now. There we go. And can you follow the bear? There we go. So we'll put him there. And we'll put a start button here. Good. So there's our backdrop for the start screen. Let's call this start screen. It's always a good idea to rename your screens, your backdrops or your costumes, so you know what's happening. There's start screen. And we'll leave that without the decoration for the main screen. Let's call this game screen. Game screen, there we go. So there we go, start screen, and then after the start we'll move on to the game screen. So what we'll do, we'll say here is, okay, at the start of the game, let's switch the backdrop to the start screen. Good, so when we click start, we'll go to there. Excellent. And what we'll do here is we'll say when we receive message start game, we'll switch the backdrop to game screen. So the idea being, we press start, we're on this screen, and when we go to the start game and that's received, it'll switch to that. There we go, good stuff. Brilliant. So now what we need to do is we need to do our start button here as well. Okay, so let's create ourselves a new sprite. And we're going to switch to vector mode here, convert to vector. Vectors are always better than bitmaps if you can use them. What we'll do here, we'll click on the circle, and we'll do that one there. We'll do a nice purple outline, but the backdrop has got to be white. There we go. There we go. So now, if you draw a circle here, it should... Oh, oops, let's just undo that. We've got a circle there ready for our button. What we'll do here is we'll click on this one, the reshape one. And let's just drag those ends into there slightly so it looks a bit more button-like rather than just a circle. Pull those slightly up. Good, good, good. And we'll use the colour tool and we'll paint it white. There you go. And you can see it's all painted white. And let's move that down. That's a little bit big. So select tool. Let's make it a bit smaller to the size of the button we want. That's more like it. And then let's click here. Oh, click that there so the main colour's there. And then start. There you go. Probably won't be directly in the middle, so just type it, click off, and then you can put it in the middle. So there now is our start button. So we've got a start screen, the bear. You could even get him talking, I suppose, and put, can you follow me or something. Or you could put that as speech marks there or something if you wanted. But there's our start screen. Good. Now what we do here is say, okay, when we press start, let's show. So it's going to show this button here. And, oops. When this sprite is clicked, we'll do two things. Number one, we'll hide. And number two, we'll broadcast start the game. So there's the trigger. So it's nice and simple. At the start of the game, it shows this screen. As soon as that clicks, hides all of those, and you're ready to start the game. And this broadcast here can be the trigger for the next thing. Okay, so let's start adding let's add our first card, and let's get started. So click on Paint a New Sprite. Switch down to vector mode. Again, we're going to use the ellipse tool. The reason we use this tool rather than the square tool is that always does like jagged edges and it doesn't look as good. Whereas this one, although it draws a circle, then when you click on the reshape tool, you can turn it into more of a card sort of shape. And you can add more points on if you want to get it purely a bit more round, a bit more square. Oops, like I've just done there. In fact, I'll just undo that. I don't want those extra points. There we go. I'm just going to have some sort of cartoony. I like oops. There we go. I like cartoony style cards here. So there's my card. There's one of my cards. Let's click on the paint tool. Flip that over so it's on white. And let's paint that white. There we go. And we'll select it. We'll just make it a bit smaller so it's going to fit on the screen. So there you go. So we've got one of the cards there, which is great. And what we'll also do here is we'll duplicate this. So right click and duplicate. And then once we've got the second, actually no, sorry, that's wrong. Undo that. Before we duplicate, what we'll do is we'll click Set Costume Center and click in the center so that it's dead center in the costume. Just makes it easier later. So there we go. We've got the costume in the center. Right click, duplicate, and what we'll do now is we'll do the face of the card. So we'll paint it, flip that round, do a slightly different colour, and there you go. So now we've got the open card, the face up, and the front. That could be the front, can't it? And that could be the back of the card. So we'll just rename that back, front. Excellent, good. So now we've got a front and a back of a card, which is brilliant. What we'll also do now is we'll put the code in here that flips the card. So whenever the card, the flip function runs, it will flip the card over. That's nice and easy. In order to do that, we're going to make, we'll do more blocks, make a block, and we'll just call it flip card. Nice and easy, this one, flip card. So what you've got now is we've got two things. This one's popped up here called define flip card. This is the set of instructions that is going to be run when this bit of code here is executed. A function in this case here for this, a function's like a broadcast, but it only broadcasts for this sprite on this particular sprite. Whereas a broadcast, if I created a broadcast called flip card, then every time I ran it, every single card on this screen would flip. By using this function will only work on this particular card, which is good because we don't want all the cards flipping over if we click one of them. So what we're going to do, well, nice and easy to flip the card. repeat 10 times. What we'll do is we'll go smaller, change size by -10. And then what we'll do is we'll go to the next costume, and then we'll do the same again, but this time instead of -10, it will be +10. So now if we click flip card, hopefully, there you go. Every time you flip the card, it just goes to the other side, just like that. Excellent. Okay, so there's our first card sorted, which is brilliant. What we need to do here is, okay, at the very start, we need to hide the cards because it's on the start screen, we don't want it. But when we receive start game, we want to show the cards. Let's have a look. So we'll go show. And we need to switch our face to the front face there, our costume to the front. There we go, brilliant. So there's our front face. There we go. Let's just run that. Start. And there you go. So start, and it shows the front costume of that, which is good. So here at the start game, what do we want to do? Well, we need to show the front face. Then we need to sort of wait a few seconds. So let's wait 3 seconds. So that people can see what is on the card. Then we need to flip the card, and then we also need to wait a little bit after that. Oh, no, don't need to wait. There we go. So now, if we click start game, and then after 3 seconds, it'll flip over, ready to do it. Now, we could, at this point, right-click and duplicate these, and then check all 3. But the problem at the moment, of course, is that we've got more code to go in. It's easier if we do all of the code, or as much as we can on here, before we duplicate it. So what are we going to do next? Well, now what we're going to do is we're going to get this card moving with the other 2 cards. But before we can do that, we need to pick which 2 cards out of the 3 are going to swap. And the stage is important. The stage is going to be in charge of this. The reason being is that if we had 3 cards, we don't really know which card's in charge of which card should be in charge of flipping them, all 3 of them. So I put it on the stage so that we know that because it doesn't belong to one of those cards, we'll put it on the stage and it could do on any of those cards. So how does this work? Well, what we say here is, okay, when I receive swap, because we're going to swap the cards, what we need to do now is we need to say, okay, I don't want anything to happen while we're swapping them, because otherwise in a bit what we're going to say is, okay, if I click on the card it's going to turn over, but you don't want a person to be able to turn over the card while the cards are moving around. So we create a variable called swapping. There we go. So there's our swapping, and when we receive swap and whilst they are swapping, we'll set the swapping variable to true. Because what we could say now here is, okay, whilst this variable is true, we're not allowed to flip a card. There we are. And we can say that here. So when this sprite is clicked, if swapping equals true, then do nothing. There we are. Oh, actually, in that case, we've got to do nothing. We'll put it in a not. There we go. So if not swapping equals true. Oh, actually, hang on a minute. Let's just change that round. Why don't we just put if swapping equals false? There you go. So here, if swapping equals false, then you can flip the card. Sorted. So now what we need to do is we need to choose some cards to swap and swap those cards. So let's go over to the stage. So when we receive swaps, let's swap it to true, which is good. Now we need to pick 2 cards to swap. In order to do this, we need to create 2 variables. And let's call this card 1, and that's going to store the first card to swap. And then we'll create one called card 2. And that's going to be the second card to swap. There we go. And so we've got card 1 and card 2, and we'll set them both to random numbers from 1 to 3. So pick a number from 1 to 3, pick a number from 1 to 3, and those will generate, whenever we do this now, if you look over here, it will generate 2 random numbers. But there is a bit of a problem here, because this code here could actually pick the same number. So you could pick a random between 1 and 3 with 1 here, random between 1 and 3, 1 there. So how do we stop that? Well, we keep that code there, and all we do is we just put a little repeat until here, and we say, okay, repeat until not card 1 equals card 2. So we're going to keep repeating until these two aren't the same, and all we do is we just set card 2 to a random number from 1 to 3. So what will happen is now it will pick these 2 random numbers, but if they are the same, it will just keep repeating until they're not the same. So let's have a quick look now. There you go, perfect. So it's picking those 2 random numbers, which is great. Excellent. So what do we do? Well, what we do here now is we've picked the 2 random numbers. Then we need to broadcast to the other cards to say, okay, the new numbers have been picked. Let's start moving the cards. So broadcast move cards. And then after you've moved the cards, we set the swapping to false. So set swapping to false. Oh, sorry, actually, broadcast move cards and wait. Let me just show you that. These two are slightly different. What's going to happen here is this one will broadcast this, and then all the other cards will move, and then finally, once all the cards have finished moving, then we change swapping to false. There we go. Because we need to wait till all the cards have finished moving before we let anybody start clicking on them. So that's a slightly different way of doing things, but it's good for controlling the execution of your code. Okay, so here we go. Let's get this started. So what happens when I receive move cards? What do we got to do? Well, whenever these cards receive move cards, they need to find out if they've been picked, and if this card has been picked, we need to swap it with the other card that's been picked. So how does this work? Well, what we say here is we say, okay, if the first card here is equal to, there we go, if card 1 equals 1, there we go, then we need to move to the position of card 2. But how do we do that? Well, let me show you. First thing we do here is we rename sprite 2. So click on that there. Rename sprite to 1, because that's going to be card 1. And we're going to duplicate these. I'll just show you. So we have card 2 and card 3. I'm going to delete these in a second, but just show you've got the example. So these now are all they're all numbered 1, 2, 3, and those are those names. You see, his name is 1, his name is 2, his name is 3. We'll just delete these for a second while we put the code in, because we need to change it. And what we say here is, okay, if card 1 equals 1, then we're going to glide over to where card 2 is. Now here's the clever bit. We can't always say glide 1 second to, and then just put, for instance, if there was a card 2 here, we couldn't choose sensing and say, okay, give me the position of 1 or 2 or 3, because we don't know which one is going to be 1. So this card 2 doesn't necessarily correspond to this card 2. So we've got to be a little bit more clever, and that's where we use the value from these variables. We say, okay, we're going to go to the X position and the Y position, not of a fixed card like 1, 2 or 3 here, but whatever value is inside of this variable here. And that's the clever bit. So it will go to this variable and it will get the X position of, if that is 2, it will go to card 2 and get the X position of that. So there we go. And now if we duplicate that, and we change this to card 2. If card 2 equals 1. So basically, if this card equals number 1, that i.e. me, then we go to, oh no, I've messed this up. I messed this completely wrong, because that'd be like going to my own position. That's a bit silly. It needs to be that way round. So there you go. So if I'm picked, so if card 1 equals 1, which is me, this one, because he's 1, then what we do here is we go to the X position of whatever this other card is picked, and the Y position of whatever card is picked. Otherwise, if card 2, i.e. this one is me, then we go to card 1. So we're swapping around, a little sort of switch around there. Good. That's fine. And then what we could do here is say, okay, duplicate. Notice how here, because we changed that to 1 now, that one's already called number 2. Now number 2 here, we'll change this to card 2. 2. There we go. And duplicate that. We'll do number 3. 3. 3. So hopefully now, if we go back to the stage, start the game, what we'll do now is we'll say, okay, just wait 5 seconds after we've started the game, and then we'll swap. And hopefully now, things will start to look a bit like a game. So press start, they all disappear. We click start, they all appear, and they're all face up, although none of them have got the right code. And hopefully now, after 5 seconds, there you go, the first one swapped. Brilliant. Good, good, good. So we got 1 swap, but that's a little bit boring. We wanted to swap a few more times than 1. So for the moment, what we'll do is we'll say, okay, get this repeat code here. Set card 1, and we'll pop all of this bit of code here inside of a repeat. So the idea being is that when we receive swap, we set swap into true. We'll just do it 5 times at the moment because it'll take ages otherwise while we're testing it. Do all of this 5 times, and then finally we'll set swap into false so you can click on a card. It should now swap 5 times. There you go. Brilliant. So there you go. So we're now swapped 5 times, which is great. Now what we need to do is we need to get it so that we can find out when we click on it if we pick the correct one. So how do we do that? Well, that's actually quite easy. What we'll do here is on the card 1, we'll have card 1 as the winning card. We're going to put a bear on this now. So what we'll do here is we'll choose a costume from the library. Animals, you can choose whatever you want. I'm going to have this bear. And click on the front card and then drag the bear over into it. It's probably going to be a bit big. Yep. So I'm just making it a bit smaller. So that number 1 there is the winning card. Bear is the winning card. So what we say here is, okay, that's fine. Once we've done all that, and we've checked them, once this card is clicked, which is just here, if the swapping equals false, we'll flip the card. So if we're allowed to flip it, we'll flip the card. Just wait a second, maybe a little bit less than a second. And if this is the card that's been clicked, what we'll do is we'll broadcast correct. Good, because we got it correct, which is fine. And then we'll just wait another second. And we'll flip that card back over again. So hopefully now, let's just try that again. So if we click the correct one, we'll just have to keep an eye on him. There's the correct one. And if we click on there, it comes over. It should have broadcast correct, which I'll have to check. And then it swaps the card back over. What's it done there? Something went wrong there, but we'll have a look at that in a minute. Have I got... Oh, that's why. That's because I've got 3 costumes instead of 2 by accident. So make sure you get rid of that 3rd costume, otherwise it will go all wrong. Okay, good stuff. So what happens when I get it correct? Well, what I want to happen is, if I get it correct, I want it now to say correct right across the front of the screen. In order to do that, we're going to need to create a new sprite with some text. Make sure it's set to scratch. I'll use a different colour there. I'll just type in correct. Make it nice and big. Just like that. There you go, correct. Excellent. Put it wherever you want to appear on the screen. And what we can say here is, okay, at the start of the screen, at the start of the game, we'll hide. Whenever I receive correct, we will show. But we'll also set the costume to, click on costumes, and call that correct. So, in fact, we'll do that way and switch your costume to correct and then show. So we'll change it to the correct costume and then show, and then we'll wait a couple of seconds, wait 3 or 4 seconds, and then we'll hide it again. 3 seconds, and then we will hide. Good. So if you get it correct, it will show this costume that says correct, show for a few seconds, and then hide the correct thing again. We'll also increase the score by 1. Well, what score? Well, we need to create a variable. Create a variable and call it score, because this is going to hold the score, and we're going to change the score by 1, which is okay. But of course, at the start of the game, we're going to need to set the score to 0. So at the start of the game, set the score to 0, and if we receive correct, change the score by 1. So let's try that now. We'll press start game, click start. There's our bear. And there's that bear. There you go. And it should say correct. Well done. And if you look here, our score's gone up by 1. Brilliant. In fact, change the score there right after it says correct. So the score instantly changes. And we'll put the score at the top of the screen. These 3 here, we don't need those now. Swapping, we'll just hide those so you can't see them. So it looks a bit tidier. There we go. Or should we put it there? Let's put it at the top of the screen. Good. So that's if you get it correct. But what happens if you get it incorrect? Well, if you get it incorrect, what we need to do here, let's create a new costume. And let's use some text again. Incorrect. And we'll just put game over. Ah, I could have put it on bitmap mode. Oh, silly, silly me. Never mind. Vector mode. Can't believe I did that. You probably want to go and change that to a vector mode one rather than bitmap because it looks a bit nicer. I'll show you that in a second. Incorrect. Wasn't paying attention there. Vectors, because of the way they work, they can be scaled up and they still look cool no matter how they're scaled. And then we'll put game over. Incorrect, game over. There you go. So there's our incorrect. So we've got correct and incorrect, game over. So what we can say here now is we can go to the other cards and we say, okay, same sort of thing. So it's basically going to be the same as this, but instead of saying correct, it's going to say incorrect. So what we do here is flip the card and we'll just say incorrect. Incorrect. We'll just wait a second before we flip the card. There you go. So wait 1 second, broadcast incorrect. That's for number 2. Do the same for number 3. Wait 1 second. Broadcast incorrect. Good. So that's okay. Broadcast incorrect. And when it says incorrect, then oh no, that one. When I receive correct, do that one. Duplicate. When I receive incorrect, change the costume to incorrect. Show. We don't change the score by 1 because they're not going to get more to the score. All we do is just wait 1 second and then we're going to broadcast game over. Wait 1 second and then we'll broadcast game over. Broadcast. Oh, no. Broadcast, new message, game over. So what happens when we get game over? Well, game over, all we'll do is we'll just hide all of these cards and we'll just leave it with the incorrect game over screen there. So broadcast game over. And these ones here, when I receive game over, we will just hide. There you go. Now you don't have to make your game as brutal as mine. You could have 3 lives or something. You could say, okay, if their lives gets down to 0, then game over. But I'm going to be quite brutal in mine. You either win or you lose. Right, so let's try again. There we go. So if we click there you go. Correct. Brilliant. And it carries on. So now if I click here, oops. There's the problem. Okay, so now, what we need to do now is we need to say, okay, here on the first card, if we do get it correct here, after we broadcast correct, we've flipped the card. What we need to do now is we need to say, okay, let's start the next bit of the game. So how do we do that? Well, all we need to do here is here, when I receive correct, there we go, change the score by 1. What we'll also do is we'll set swapping to true, because if you've clicked 1 you can't have another go. Set swapping to true. Wait the 3 seconds. After the 3 seconds, and this is hidden, we then need to broadcast swap again. And that effectively will move you on to the next bit of the level. Let's try that again. Click start. So let's watch the bear. Not sure if I was watching the bear then. So if we click that there you go, correct. Now I can't click it. I'm trying to click it, nothing happens. And now we start swapping again. But something's just happened there. My bear's not swapped, has he? Broadcast correct. Wait 1 second, flip the card. I don't know what's happened there. Let's have a quick look. So it's there, face up. There you go. Correct. Oh. Did it right there. I don't know why it did that. There you go. Perfect. So it keeps on going round and it keeps swapping. Your score keeps going up, which is good. If you click on the wrong one, it'll say incorrect, game over, and those hide. Perfect. Brilliant. So that's the game pretty much done. Just a couple of things to tidy it up. Here at the start of the game, when it first starts, we're going to want to hide the score. So let's just go to the start button. When start is clicked, what we'll do is we'll hide the variable. Hide variable score, but once that sprite is clicked, we'll show the variable score. So now, start the game. There we go. It hides the variable score, but as soon as you click start, it appears, which is perfect. So that's the main thing. Those are all sorted there, which is good. One more thing to do. Obviously, this game here at the moment, it doesn't get much harder. So we're going to want to have a way of increasing the difficulty. Because at the moment it just keeps on doing and you can keep going and swapping and swapping and swapping, but we want it to gradually get harder and harder and harder. Well, how can we do that? Well, there's 2 things that we can change really. We can change the amount of swaps here. So what we could do here is you say, okay, at the moment it repeats 5, but why don't we change that to use some maths here, and why don't we say, okay, take the score and add, oops, and add 2 to it. Or add 2. Should we do add 2? There you go. So the first thing that's going to happen here is, okay, whatever the score is, the first time round the score is set to 0, so it's only going to swap 2 times. Then the next time it's going to swap 3 times. In fact, let's try that out. Let's make sure that works. So in theory, it should turn over and swap 2 times. 1, 2. We click that now. Good. And now the second time, it should swap 3 times. 1, 2, 3. There you go. And then 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, etc., etc., etc. That's good. That's perfect. But what we also need to do to make it even harder is, why don't we say, okay, here, this glide, why don't we make it go quicker and quicker and quicker each time? So what we'll do is we'll create a variable, call it glide time. Okay, there's glide time. At the, oh, here we go. At the start of the game, set the glide time, here we go. When start click, set glide time to 1 second. In fact, we could even, there we go. It's okay. And every time we receive correct, we will change that glide time. Oh, no, not set glide time to. Change the glide time by minus 0.02 or 0.03. You can mess with this. You can change that. So what's going to happen here is the glide time is going to start at 1, but then each time you get it right, that's time at which it glides between the two, is going to decrease slightly. But in order to make that work, what we need to do here is for each of the cards where it says glide 1 second, we need to change that to a variable. So glide time seconds. And you can mess with them, you can make it as hard as you like. You can have a difficulty setting as well at the start of the game, so you choose just how hard is it to start. So let's have a look. Let's try that now. So we're going to keep, for the moment, we'll keep glide time there visible. Let's click start. Move score out of the way. Oh, I've just lost where mine was now, actually. Is it that one? Hey, good. So that was quite easy. Now glide time's going to go a little bit quicker. And it's going to do it 3 times. There we go. There we go. And now it'll do it 4 times. There we go. And we can see it's slowly but surely starting to get quicker and quicker and quicker as that glide time decreases. You could do, let me just give you a quick demonstration. I wouldn't set these values here to this, but let's say we did it minus 0. Change it by minus 0.1. This should make it go, don't actually do this in your actual game, but oh, we need to fix that as well, don't we? There you go. You can see now it's starting to move quite a bit quicker. Ooh, starting to swap really quickly now. And there you go. You can see exactly how it's happening. And it's starting to move much, much quicker now, and it will keep going down. There you go. You can see them moving really, really quickly now. And it swaps more and more times until it gets harder and harder and harder and harder until you get it wrong. So, now you can really start to see it moving really quickly now as it gets down to 0.4 seconds. And I've got it wrong. And then it will say game over. And my score was 6. So what we'll do is we'll hide glide time. Couple of things. Press start. what I want now, just before I finish the game, is we need to make sure that these always appear in these 3 positions here, here, and here. So what we'll do now is we'll say, okay, when start clicked, for each of them, just go to, and it'll already have the right position in the right one. So just drag that go to, because they're already set up now. And that's it, done. So there you go, there's your game, fully working. I hope you enjoy it. If you do like the tutorials, do make sure you subscribe and like the video if you like it, so that you can receive more videos. Thank you very much for watching, and good luck.